Welcome back to another video. I wanted to do another mental health related video about a different trigger of mine, which is slightly related to the last one. I figured that I am pretty much in my feelings as is. I'm not completely depressed, but I am pretty exhausted, and to be honest, I thought I need to get out what's bothering me, because the thing that I'm going to talk about really does bother me from time to time, especially now that I'm in a relationship and we're not particularly thinking about kids, but it's something that you think about when you're in a relationship just on your own. And don't worry, I have no future plans to, dive into pregnancy and childbearing. It's just something that is always on my mind given my past. Now, if you watched my last video about guilt, you know I have survivor's guilt because I was the one who got away. I left my family, and because I left my family, I had to leave behind all my siblings. And I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of 6 siblings, and the youngest being 18 years younger than me. And I was charged with looking after all of them, and I feel extremely guilty about that. So in line with that, this is also a huge question mark and also a huge trigger for me, whether or not I want kids. And it's honestly something that I don't know the answer to. It's something that I've flip-flopped with for years. And I know I'm young, I'm only 24, and a lot of people are kind of like, well, you've got time, it's not like your biological clock is running out. But that's not really the point. My siblings were my children. I regarded them as my children, to the point that when I would talk to my family about getting married and having kids, because it's honestly the only thing they wanted to talk to me about, I would tell them that I have no interest in having kids, because as far as I was concerned, I already had my kids, and those were my siblings, and those are the people that I was responsible for as a guardian, as a carer. And just as a disclaimer before I go any further, I know it's like 3 minutes in, I don't know if I will be tearing up in this video. I may do, so if that's something that affects you, please click away, or, listen to it in stages rather than all at once. I don't know how long this video will be, because I have a lot to say about this. And I think a lot of people have difficulty relating to something like this, because, to be honest, I don't think there's many sisters out there who've had to look after their siblings. It was a very difficult, trying time for me, and sometimes I just don't know how to look at it. But I would like to start by just sharing something a little weird about myself, which is these. I have stuffed animals to represent my siblings, and maybe that's a little weird, but I kind of just have them around the house, and I just sort of cuddle them when I'm feeling down. I'm already fucking tearing up. It's a nightmare. But the reason I have them, I'll tell you the story behind it. This one, I had bought this moose for my brother Musa. Pretty obvious why. And when I was younger, before my parents had become super religious, I didn't really have any teddy bears or any dolls. I used to collect a lot of ponies, like My Little Ponies. I used to have a lot of those, and I had like these Pokemon discs that had like all the different Pokemons on them and whatever. But as soon as my parents became quite religious, all of that sort of disappeared for me, especially because I had attained puberty. I was 11, and all of that was just thrown out, and I never really got to have a stuffed animal, and I wanted my siblings to have them. So my siblings did have like teddy bears and little stuffed animals, but admittedly, they didn't have a lot because, you know, stupid things about angels of mercy not entering the houses with, you know, faces in them, stuffed dolls, pictures, whatever. Not the video for it, honestly. But after I'd left my father's house and I would periodically see some of my siblings without him being there, my brother Musa was very close to me, and I was very close to him. He's my second youngest sibling, and I loved him to bits. He was my baby. My younger sibling I didn't have a lot of time with. He was only like 5 months when my mother passed away, and I was not fit to look after a newborn and four other you know, minors. So my aunt actually took him into her care, and I looked after the others. So the youngest that I had to look after was Musa, who was only about a year at the time. And sorry, he had quite a few complications with his health. For fuck's sake, nothing has happened yet. He had quite a few complications with his health. So he had something called Ellis-Van Creveld syndrome, which was not life-threatening at the time when he was born. We did have a lot of worries that he wouldn't survive. It's basically, the syndrome is basically a result of having a small hole in your heart. So, and like quite literally, not that, you know, nothing figurative here. He literally had a hole in his heart in one of his valves. And that caused him to have extra fingers. It caused him to be quite little and small. He had like a cleft palate. A lot of people who have this syndrome, and it's very rare, a lot of people who have this syndrome also have a split lip, which he was not born with. And he was my baby. I looked after him. He had a feeding tube in his nose when he was really young because he had problems eating. I would have to like process all his food so that he could, you know, swallow it. And even then, sometimes he would just throw it up because of his, you know, how his mouth was. He had a very, very strong gag reflex, so most of our gag reflexes are quite far back in our mouths. His was like quite forward, so he could not chew anything when he was young. And when he had his open heart surgery to correct his this complication with his heart, I was there, and it was one of the most harrowing events of my life. Like, it was terrifying, and I didn't know what was gonna happen. And there were so many instances where I would just hold him and cry because I didn't know if he was gonna go. I didn't know if he was gonna die. But he didn't, and he's alive, and he's well, and, you know, as far as I know. Sorry. But I feel like it was the point in my life, like my mother had passed away by this point. It was the point in my life where I was like, this is my child. This is no longer just my brother. This is my baby. And not only did it extend to him, but all of my siblings that were under my care. They were my children. They were no longer just my brothers and my sisters. They were my children, and I was charged with them. So, excuse me. I'm just like, this is what I mean. Like, I can't even talk about it like a normal person. I can't just say, these are my brothers and sisters. I can't. Like, I feel like this is such a normal conversation to have, and yet I can't have it normally. I become this. I become a mess. So, I had this attachment with my brother, and after I had left my dad's house because of everything that had happened, you know, all the abuse, all the everything, I had left with my siblings. We had stayed at my grandmother's house. My grandmother absolutely fucking detested me because I reported my dad. She had asked me to leave many times, so I had opted to call one of my uncles. It was one of my maternal uncles, and tell him everything that happened, because my family's fucked up and they don't tell anyone anything. So I told him everything that happened, and he like had a go at me for not calling him earlier when all of this bullshit was happening, but you know, I'm gonna get past that. And he said, okay, I'm coming to pick you up. But they would not, my dad's side of the family would not allow me to take all of the kids. They would only let me take Musa. So I took my young, at this point toddler brother, with me to my uncle's house, where we lived for a few months. And following those few months, my dad had come to my uncle's house and had demanded that he take Musa back. And I couldn't do anything because social services was also being involved, and I could not be a legal guardian because I was not a parent. And my dad was, and he had been assessed or something. I don't know all of the details because I was not there to, you know, manage it. But they had told me that he was fit to raise my brother, so they had come to take him away. And he was taken away, and I wanted to die. My whole life became empty, and nobody understood that. Like, not a single soul understood that someone had come, attacked me, and had not only taken one of my children away, had taken two others away, because I have a younger brother who's only like 2.5 years younger than me, and he didn't really need taking care of. Actually, we had a lot of altercations, and a lot of problems, and I faced some abuse from him as well, but I don't like talking about it because we were all in a bad environment, so I don't hold that against him. I definitely have my issues with him, but I don't hold it against him. The minors in my home were 10 and younger, were three children in my home, and all of those children had systematically been taken away from me, and nobody understood my heartbreak about that. And I don't know how to reconcile it, because they aren't my children, not biologically, but from a caretaker's perspective. Like, while my mother was ill and while she would be away in hospital, Musa would not recognize her because she had been gone for so long, for 3-4 months, and she would come home and he would not recognize her, and she would say, I'm not his mom anymore, you're his mother. And especially after his surgery, I really feel like I adopted that, and just having that stripped away from me has just left me like a husk. Like, I can't get over it. Like, I feel like people don't understand to what extent that I had gone through this. Like, I went through this surgery. I had to lead my brother into the surgery room and then leave him as they like gave him an anesthetic and put him to sleep so they could cut him up and you know, ultimately fix him, but still. And I had to watch his recovery. I had to see him all swollen after the surgery because of the morphine and the blood and everything. Oh my god, you know, I potty trained them, I cleaned up their vomit, I cleaned up their piss, their poop, I cleaned everything, and I walked them to school. I was there for my younger sister's first day at school, and I remember her crying so much because she didn't want me to leave. And I remember like crying on my way home because I felt so bad that I had to leave her. And, you know, other mums being there and reassuring me that, oh, this is completely normal, you shouldn't be crying. How do I reconcile that? I don't know. So, anyway, it was a long way to go with very little payoff, I'm sorry. Anyway, so after everything, after he had been taken away and I had moved a few times to a number of different family members' homes, I would see him because he was living with one of my aunts, and I would go and see him, and she admittedly didn't like having me there, but the first few times she didn't really say anything of me being there. And I had bought him this moose, and at that time I was volunteering a lot. I didn't have a job and I was actively seeking employment and experience, so I was working in a charity shop. And it wasn't that aunt, but it was a different aunt. She had brought this in and she donated it, and it was Musas. I knew it was Musas, but they blatantly did not want him to have this because I had given it to him. And sorry. Anyway, so my family had basically decided to donate this to the charity shop where I was working, because they, to send a message, I guess. And not only did they return this, but it was also torn, so I had to sew it up, and I thought, I'm gonna hold on to this, and I'm gonna give it to him when I see him next, and I didn't get to see him next. I still haven't seen him next to give this back to him. And I've just sort of held on to it, and I kind of just have them to remind me of them. And I know that sounds crazy. That sounds like something an insane person would do. But let me explain my madness here. One of my favorite movies is Gladiator. I love Gladiator. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's an amazing movie, right? And Maximus has these idols because he's a Roman, but also he has these idols made of his family members that he just remembers. And I thought that was a good idea. I thought that was an interesting thing, and I wanted to incorporate that into my life somehow. So I bought 2 other stuffed animals. This one I actually won at a fair, the wolf, and I've just sort of had them to remind me of my siblings. This one is for my younger sister, Hafsa, because she loved My Little Pony, the TV show, and this was her favourite pony. And I got the wolf for Fatima because admittedly wolves are her favourite animal. and that's just her personality, I guess. She's very, very, I wouldn't say independent. She works better in a group, and she's loyal. She was the only one to stand up for me when my brother had stolen all my money, like £600, and it was everything I had. And she's just fierce, and she does her own thing. She doesn't give a fuck. And that's why I got a wolf for her. I won a wolf for her. And I just keep these around my room, and they remind me of my siblings, of my kids. And I know this video has been a mess already, but there was another part that I wanted to do with this. I don't know if I can keep it together for that. But my fear is that if I do have kids, that they'll be taken away from me. It's that fear that I'll have kids and then something will happen, and someone, is going to take them away from me. Be that death, be that other people, be that anything. I have this crippling fear, and I've considered it so many times. I've thought about it so many times that I just don't want to have any. I've considered, completely shutting it all down, like tying my tubes and not having any kids. I've thought of, adopting possibly, because if they didn't want to be with me, or they, were taken away, it would be for like a legal reason. And I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds stupid. But it's a genuine fear I have, and it's when people bring it up, when people ask me, "Oh, do you want to have kids?" This is where my mind goes. It's no, I don't want to have any kids, because as far as I'm aware, I've already had kids, and they were taken away from me. And the other thing is, I'm terrified. I am absolutely terrified that if I have a kid, would I turn out like my dad? And my dad is a narcissist, he's a psycho, and I really don't want to turn out like that. I love kids. I love especially teenagers. I think they're funny and they're dramatic and always have something to say, and it's my life. Like, I love it. But I'm terrified of becoming a person who will limit another person because I think that it's the right thing to do, because it's my call, because I'll be in a position of authority and power, and my mind, something will go off in my mind, and I'll just use it as an opportunity to manipulate and control them. And I'm terrified of becoming that. And I really don't want to become that. And I don't know if that's just in my blood, if that's just if that's just destined to happen if I have a kid. And there's just so much. There's just so much. There's so much fear there. There's like, I can't work in a place where it's all little kids. Like, if there's 20 little kids and I'm charged with looking after 10 of them, I can't do it. I can't do it. It throws me into a place where I was just a mom. I was just a mom, and it wasn't perfect, but I had my kids. They would make me smile. and it just throws me back. Like, I can handle looking after 1 or 2 kids, like, that's fine, but if it's a lot of kids at once, I just become so overwhelmed. The last time I did it was a few months ago. I worked at a summer camp for a day, and I told the manager there immediately. I was like, I can't do this tomorrow. This is too much. This is too much. I didn't explain everything, obviously, but I had basically just told her that the environment just makes me too anxious, and she was like, okay. And I don't want this to cripple me, because, like I said, I love kids, I work with kids, I don't want this to escalate, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to reconcile this. Maybe I need to seek help specifically for this, like go and see a therapist specifically for this issue. I don't know. But at the minute, I'm not constantly thinking about it. Like, I'm not trying to have kids. I'm not at risk of having a child. It's just something that hits me from time to time. And I don't know, I wish I could talk about this like a normal person without being this way, where I'm just crying and I'm miserable. I love them, and I miss them, and I wish I could see them, but I can't, because my family are a bag of dicks, first of all, and second of all, I don't know if they want to see me, you know? I'm the one that got away. I'm the one that abandoned them. So, yeah. Sorry, I just needed a minute. But that is my grievance for this week. That is my story for this week. And I don't know if anybody can relate to this, because I have never met another person in my life who became so attached like I did to their sibling. But if this has happened, if you have had a similar experience like this, please let me know. I would like to feel like I'm not alone in the world in this. And just let me know if this helped at all. Like, this, I feel like this will make me a crazy person, but I don't care, because it helps me. It helps me feel close to them in a weird way, and yeah, that's all really. That's all that matters, is that it makes me happy in some way. But thank you for tuning in and watching me cry for like 20 plus minutes. I hope that you got something out of this story. If you didn't get anything, I apologize. I've just been thinking about them a lot recently, and I miss them. I really, really miss them. But thank you, and I will see you in the next video, hopefully with a happier video. I really want to do some cooking this weekend. Maybe I'll record that, I don't know. But I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.